Hey, it's Drybear. Yesterday, the last patch of Season 2 launched with a whole bunch of new systems. We went over everything yesterday, but today I want to talk about some of the reactions to everything going on, and more specifically around the new Void Abyss boss that everyone's been playing, and kind of just the changes that they aim to make with that boss, and also how things actually ended up at the end of the day. And as far as the memes go, the guy that got a ticket to PAX East flew out to the convention, landed at the convention, put on his badge, went into the convention, talked to the devs and said, hey, your Luna skin has painted fingernails, but it does not have painted toenails. He got it fixed, man. He made a real impact on game. He got what he needed. So there you go. There's the sniffer. And the first thing to talk about today is going to be the dynamic motion, the interaction of planetary bodies in motion. There's definitely been kind of like a mixed bag on this topic in general, and a lot of people have opinions on this system as well. But I think the takeaway here, if I'm looking at this at a 10,000 foot view, depending on, regardless of what side of the argument you're on for dynamic motion, whether you're someone who really enjoys it and you're very happy that it went into the game, or you're someone that wishes for a different approach or maybe some new, styles or features that go into the game outside of just the dynamic motion as a system, I think it's pretty clear to see that the community on average is very happy that it went in. Even just a quick peek at the Reddit here, you can see it's glorious. Thank you, devs. There's the jiggling. This one has 1.4K upvotes. There's like a whole bunch of these that are just focused on the dynamic motion specifically. And a lot of people's just saying, thank you, devs. I'm so excited about this. These generally have like really good upvotes and engagement. So if you're just looking at this, like here's another thank you, devs thing here. If you're just looking at this from a high level viewpoint, it seems like this is something that the community very much wanted. And a lot of people are very happy. Well, there's the toes. A lot of people are very happy with this going in. So I think, if that's the case, right, if you're looking at this as, like as a project lead or like a C-suite with some actual like stake on the game doing well, it does seem like this was a good addition overall. But I've heard a lot of people say that they wish that they had spent it on something else overall, or new systems were focused on. They did kind of commit to having a good like 5 months of development cycle on this. Obviously, the art director had to be involved and the art team had to make sure this was working well. But with these kind of like motion, like actually having reactionary physics based on motion, usually will rely a lot on programmers because it needs to be procedural in a lot of ways, but also like it needs to be reliant on tech art as well. So like hooking up the animations, this being an Unreal game, make sure everything's hooked up properly and everything moves. And then I'm sure they had to have a lot of review meetings from the art team, sitting down, reviewing how things move and all of that, just to make sure that it works well. But realistically, it seems like it was a very positive thing for the game. This is kind of the direction that it's heading in. And, there are still people that want more. Now, just like as a functional system, I think there are some issues, especially with like the menu. It doesn't seem like you could actually get the kind of G-forces or like the rotation you would need to get these kinds of effects to happen when you're just in game. But I think like just showing off in the menu, there's definitely some very obvious problems that are very unrealistic. And obviously you can get like some major clipping. You can see if there's any like, even like this ribbon isn't a rigid body. Like it does have some physics reaction. Like as you move around, the neck ribbon does kind of move with it. But you can see very easily that the rotational aspect of it is in some cases so egregious on the menu that it does clip through things. So you generally don't want clipping here, but because of the area that they've designated for that, it ends up just creating a lot of issues there. And I would also say that I wish there was potentially like maybe some custom cases where they could make it so certain skins or certain characters would have some kind of modifier or scaler that would make the system function a little bit better. Because I would argue that some of these generally should not be jelloing like this. Like some of these skins and presentations, and obviously you don't want to get into the weeds of having to like really manually enter a lot of these per piece. The one that I always use is Sharon as well, because I think in general Sharon I feel like should not be doing this at all. Like this just feels very weird for a cyborg that's made of mostly metal, but I guess people, it is what people want, whatever. But I think that there could have been like some more special cases for this, because it does look kind of funky here, and maybe they just need a custom setup for this kind of like menu screen where where you have the character model that can be rotated, because I feel like maybe these kinds of G-forces just aren't possible in normal gameplay, but here it does look quite bad. But either way, we commenced to jiggle, and I think honestly this could just be one of those situations. Sometimes in game development you have issues that come up all the time, and they start getting louder and louder and louder, to the point where until you actually just do it, it's hard to move on from it. And this might just be one of those situations where, whether you're against the dynamic motion, you have an option to turn it off, or you're really into it. Either way, it is now a system that has been developed, proofed, implemented, and launched, which means that now we can kind of put it behind us, like we can focus on other things. This is now in the game. There's still people that, like, I've seen posts of like, well, we've got the gluteus maximus, but what about what about the thighs? What about the quadriceps? You know, what about like the extension just keeps going on. But either way, it's in, and it is behind us. So there you go. Next, I want to talk about the ice mating setup. So this is the new Void Abyss intercept boss that we got, and the big tagline that they put on this that on paper sounded kind of crazy is they jacked up the HP and the shield, which means that the total HP for Ice Maiden is around 1.5 to 1.6 billion HP, the highest HP boss we've ever seen. And their goal with this, as they marked down on their patch notes, is they wanted to be able to create a boss that was harder in solo, so you didn't have a 1-second solo with Serena, but it was easier in group, so group was a little bit easier. So what I did today is I actually went through and I picked, I'm working on a water play Valby. I just took a pure skill Valby. I didn't modify her at all to be built for bosses. She's still kind of squishy. You see I only have 9,400 HP, so there's risk of death. And I just did a whole bunch of pug runs with random, solo queuing into matchmaking, just to see how it was. Like, is this something that you can solo queue into with a group? How do people perform, and how does this overall feel? And I can say that honestly, it does feel pretty good. I think they actually did a really good job making this feel better. It's kind of closer to what Deathstalker was on launch, and that you can definitely build it. I still think, this is a long-standing issue with Magnum in general. They tend to be pretty bad at representing the attacks that are happening on screen, just visual feedback, audio feedback, just the gameplay affordance for the player to understand what the heck is happening, what the heck is hitting you. I think they're not the best at doing that in general, but after a couple rounds of Ice Maiden, you can kind of figure it out. Now, we're still seeing, like I did, several dozen matchmaking solo queues with groups. Almost every single one of the groups had at least 1 or 2 Serenas in it, and then we had, some Blairs and stuff like that. Not a crazy amount of variety in the groups, but for the most part, we're getting like 70-80% clear time. And as long as we were doing the part break mechanic properly, skill-based Descendants were fine. So that was kind of my biggest gripe with the overall group play experience, is that I was playing a skill-based Descendant, a ground deployable decal style skill-based Descendant, which isn't very good at breaking the weak points on a Colossus, which ended up making the experience very tough for me, because I ended up getting, groups of 4 people total, and most of the people besides myself didn't realize that you had to break the parts on the boss in order to get the damage bonus. So a lot of times, even though I was playing a skill-based Descendant, I would have to switch over to one of my built weapons, break all the weak points myself, and then switch back to going Peacemaker's skill-based Descendant just to deal damage here. So you can see the ticks are pretty low to start. Once you break the weak points, you're there. So I kind of wish there's a little bit of feedback saying, hey, you need to break those, but a lot of people in groups just didn't realize it. I even had groups where I had like 3 Serenas in the sky with a built gun shooting down at the Ice Maiden, and not shooting the weak point. So like we would go multiple minutes at a time without breaking a single weak point, which means we weren't getting the damage amp, which by the way is ridiculous. My ticks on this go from like 200k to like 6 to 7 million once all the parts are broken. It is a massive, massive order of magnitude increase in damage once you break the weak points. You see even here, I'm on Valby with water play, but I'm switching over to my last dagger so I can shoot the freaking weak points, because no one else in the group, even gun Descendants, aren't doing it. So that was kind of like my big gripe here. But again, that just comes down to the age-old Magnum problem of just not representing their gameplay mechanics properly. Like, there's so many things that happen, like you're like, what just hit me, an explosion goes off, but there's no VFX on your character, the sound doesn't play properly, you just take the generic I took damage sound, and there's like no VFX around you, so you're like, what just hit me? What's going on? What's happening, right? That sort of thing. But once you get a group of people that know what they're doing, even if they're not properly built for it, and you can break the weak points, I think the group experience for Ice Maiden is actually quite good. And not only did they add in, you know, some ways to consume old green tickets to make something useful out of them, generally stuff that you can farm in the game. And, you know, I feel like the skins are more valuable, but they also, you can see me typing out break the parts. I had to do this many times where people just didn't realize that breaking the parts was a massive damage increase. I even had groups where we sat here for multiple minutes without breaking the weak points, and then I had like Toxic Serenas like scoff and leave because it wasn't dying fast enough, even though they were running a gun build and they weren't shooting the weak points, so like they're part of the problem kind of thing. So there we break the weak points, then we can switch back to our skills and make sure those are done. But you know, I think like if that's going to be a big part of the experience, they probably need to represent it better. But I wanted to ask you what you think this is going to mean for the 8-player encounter that's coming in Season 3. They've promised the Wall Crasher, which is an 8-player, not a 4-player, but an 8-player encounter with a Colossus that's, you know, about twice the size of a normal Colossus. So imagine where you know, the Ice Maiden is now, double that height, and that's about how tall the Wall Crasher is, but also much thicker and wider as well, with a lot of girth on him too. So like, I think that's going to create a lot of interesting opportunities. Hopefully we get to use the hover bike in that encounter as part of the experience as well, and hooefully we also, like you see, Serena didn't like how fast we were killing the boss, so she left even though she wasn't shooting the weak points. So now the weak points are dead, you can see the damage has gone way up. So hooray, we did the mechanic and we're moving along. But what are your expectations for the 8-player co-op? I hope, one, my biggest concern about the 8-player co-op is that it functions well, right? Like I think there's definitely some situations with some mechanics and some weapons and some, you know, gameplay styles that can cause some server desync issues because they're spamming so much, or they can cause some like lag or instability issues as well. They did disable support for PS4 and the original Xbox One, so like that should help with some of people experiencing that. But again, anytime you 2x the amount of players in an encounter, you run the risk of having a lot of server issues and lag and other problems because you're, you know, 2xing the amount of effects on the screen and 2xing the amount of hits on the server when you're hitting a boss and 2xing the amount of checks and verifications going on and 2xing the amount of handshakes as well. So it can cause a lot of problems with that. So if they manage to get that done right, then the question is like, is the encounter fun? Is it reasonable? Or is it going to devolve into 8 Serenas flying around blasting the Wall Crasher and killing him in 5 seconds? And in case you're wondering, yes, we've already seen like 5 to 10 second clears on Ice Maiden, so they gave her over 1.5 billion health at max, and we went from 1 second Tormentor kills to 5 or 6 second Ice Maiden kills. So it is technically a 6x multiplier on the time to kill. It just happened to be 1 second to 6 seconds with the increase to that. So let me know where you're at with the new patch, with the Ice Maiden, with the farm on Sigma Sector. We can cover that probably tomorrow and just talk about the mutant cell farm that is incredibly slow. There are people that have been farming since the patch dropped for like 18 hours total, and they've gotten like no mutant cells or 1 mutant cell, which just feels like it's just a bit egregious as far as the drop rate goes. But let me know where you're at with the dynamic motion system, what this means for the future, and also Ice Maiden and their new approach on bosses in general. If you found value in today's video, leave a like down below, leave a comment for the algorithm to help this video get seen by more people, and don't forget to check out my other channels for other content and other stuff and other things.